Welcome to a story that I believe will keep you glued to the screen. Today, we'll explore an unexpected action by Donald Trump. An action that not only changed the life of a homeless girl and her mother, but also ignited hope for thousands of forgotten veteran families. Imagine this. In the midst of a grand motorcade on busy streets, Trump's Cadillac suddenly stops. Why? Because of a small girl holding a worn-out sign, pleading for help for her mother. What happened next will not only move you but also powerfully inspire you about compassion and the strength of small actions. This is not just a story. It's an emotional journey, a lesson in unity and hope, values we sometimes forget in our busy lives. So what drove Trump to ignore all warnings and step into a dangerous slum? And what were the results of that action? Join me as we dive into this story. I promise you won't regret it. If you find this story interesting, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more inspiring stories. The city seemed more alive than ever. Streets were packed with cars, horns blaring everywhere, blending with the hurried footsteps and noisy chatter of the crowd. Above, the sun blazed fiercely, its golden rays scorching the streets. Leading a long motorcade stretching across the street, Donald Trump's shiny Cadillac glided through the dense traffic, drawing everyone's attention. People stopped on the sidewalks, curious and surprised by the impressive procession passing by. Their eyes sparkled with curiosity mixed with a hint of admiration. A few quickly pulled out their phones to record it. Inside the lead car, Trump was intently listening to a report from his advisor. But as the motorcade turned onto a major road, his eyes caught sight of something that he couldn't look away from. Amid the bustling crowd, a girl about 10 years old stood quietly by the roadside. In her hands was a worn cardboard sign with hastily but clearly written words, "Please help, my family needs a miracle." Her name was Lily. She wore a faded gray hoodie, torn in places. Her messy hair partially covered her smudged face. But what caught Trump's attention most was Lily's eyes. Those deep blue eyes didn't show weak pleading but glowed with determination, as if she had poured all her remaining hope into the words on the sign. "Stop the car!" Trump ordered. His voice was firm but not loud. The Cadillac slowed down gradually. The vehicles behind also came to a halt. The screeching brakes pierced through the noisy air, causing the nearby crowd to turn and look. "Sir, this area isn't safe. We should keep moving," one of the bodyguards urgently said, scanning the surroundings with worry. "No," Trump replied, his eyes still fixed on the small girl by the road. "I want to know her story." "Mr. Trump, we can't guarantee your security if you step out," another advisor said, his tone urgent. Trump frowned slightly. If a child can stand there, braving the heat and indifference of everyone around, to save her family, then I can take the risk to meet her. His sharp words left no room for argument. No one dared to object further. Trump opened the car door and stepped out. Immediately, the crowd began to murmur. Many recognized him, and phones were quickly raised to capture this rare moment. Trump walked straight to Lily, bending down so his eyes were level with hers. "Hello there," Trump said, his voice gentler than usual. "What's your name?" The girl flinched slightly. Her sparkling eyes quickly shifted from fear to surprise. I'm Lily," she replied softly, clutching the sign tightly as if it were her only shield. "Lily, why are you standing here with this sign?" Trump asked, his gaze softening but still fixed on her. Lily bit her lip, glancing at the tall bodyguards behind Trump before looking back at him. "I need someone to help my mom," she said, her voice trembling. "My mom is very sick. We don't have a home. My dad died in the war." Lily's answer left the entire entourage speechless. Trump was silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. His face relaxed, but his eyes grew deeper, holding a determination no one in his team had ever seen. Trump stood up and turned to his team. "Prepare the car. I want to go to this girl's home." "Sir, that's not safe." A bodyguard immediately stepped forward, his voice tense. "The area is complicated. If something happens, we won't be able to react in time." Trump looked directly at the bodyguard, his gaze unwavering. "If this little girl has the courage to stand here to save her mother, then I can take the risk. If you're scared, you can stay here." His words silenced everyone. No one dared to say another word. He turned back, gently placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Take me to your mom. We'll figure out how to help her together. Lily looked at him, her eyes filled with surprise and hope. Really? You'll help my mom? I promise, Trump said, his voice firm. Lily gripped the sign tightly and led Trump toward a narrow alley leading to the slum. The Cadillac motorcade slowly followed, leaving the glamorous streets behind, and entering an entirely different world, where the real story was just beginning. The motorcade rolled slowly through the crowded streets, but the atmosphere inside the Cadillac was completely different. Trump sat next to Lily, his eyes intently studying the girl, trying to understand the story behind her deep blue eyes. Lily, tell me about your mom, Trump asked gently, his voice warmer than usual. Lily hesitated, her small hands clutching the sign on her lap. My mom is very weak, she began, her voice trembling slightly. She's been seriously ill for over a year. We don't have money for treatment, and we don't have a home anymore. I didn't know what else to do except stand there. Trump tilted his head, his eyebrows furrowing. What about your dad? Where is he? Lily's eyes darkened. She bit her lip as if trying to suppress deep emotion. My dad was a soldier, she said, her voice choking up. He died in the war in the Middle East. He always protected people, but when he didn't come back, no one protected my mom and me anymore. Lily's words hit Trump like a punch to the heart. He sat up straight, his gaze thoughtful as he looked at the girl. A soldier who had sacrificed for the country, leaving his family in poverty and despair. That image not only moved him, but also sparked a sense of responsibility within him. Your dad was a hero, Trump said, his voice firm, and no one can forget his sacrifice. Don't worry, Lily. I'll do everything I can to help you and your mom. Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide with hope, but also a hint of doubt. You'll really help my mom? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Trump nodded, his gaze resolute. I promise. Just then, a bodyguard in the front seat turned around, his face tense. Mr. Trump, we're entering a dangerous area. We can't guarantee your safety if you continue. You should let us handle this. Another advisor spoke up, his eyes clearly showing concern. Trump leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the bodyguard. If a child can live there every day, I can go there once. I'm not leaving. If anyone doesn't want to come, they can go back to the office. The car fell silent. No one dared to say another word, only following orders quietly. Trump turned back to Lily and smiled softly. Take me to your home. The lead Cadillac continued rolling, but the scenery outside began to change. The tall, luxurious buildings and upscale shops were gradually replaced by cracked walls, narrow streets littered with trash. The stifling heat rose from the pavement, making everything feel oppressive. We're almost there, Lily said quietly, pointing to a dark alley ahead. Trump followed her gaze. The alley was narrow and muddy, lined with makeshift houses made of rusted tin roofs and patched wooden walls. Children played in dirty puddles, while adults sat silently on porches with empty eyes. Unbelievable, one advisor muttered, but quickly fell silent when he met Trump's stern gaze. When the motorcade stopped at the end of the alley, Trump stepped out. Curious eyes immediately turned toward him. Some quietly pulled their children inside, while others watched from a distance. Lily tightly gripped Trump's hand and led him toward a rickety shack at the end of the alley. The house was just a wobbly wooden frame with a perforated tin roof, and the front door was merely a torn cloth tied shut. My mom is in here, Lily said, her voice growing softer. Trump nodded slightly and followed Lily inside. The interior was cramped and dark. The faint light from a single overhead bulb wasn't enough to dispel the shadows. In the corner was an old bed where a frail woman lay. Her face was pale, her sunken eyes widening when she saw Trump enter. Mom, this is Mr. Trump, Lily said, her voice trembling but full of hope. He's going to help us. The woman tried to sit up, but her weak body nearly collapsed. Donald Trump stepped forward, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't need to strain yourself, he said, his voice full of compassion. I'm here to help. The woman looked at him, her eyes welling up with tears. I don't know what to say, she stammered, her voice choked with emotion. You don't need to say anything, Trump replied, his gaze firm but filled with determination. From now on, I'll take care of everything. Lily stood beside her mother, her eyes shining brightly. She never imagined someone like Trump would appear in their tiny home, let alone promise to change their lives. But in Trump's heart, he knew this was just the beginning. Before him was not only a family in need, but an entire community crying out for help, and he was ready to answer that call. In the cramped space of the shack, everything seemed to quiet down. Trump sat on an old plastic chair, facing Lily's mother, a frail woman whose eyes still held a trace of strength, a strength she was trying to maintain to protect her daughter. "Where can we start, ma'am?" Trump broke the silence, his voice gentle but carrying enough strength to reassure. The woman looked up, her eyes red and teary. "I don't know," she said, her voice hoarse from exhaustion and emotion. "Everything fell apart when he didn't come back." She gripped Lily's hand, as if seeking comfort from her little daughter. "My husband was a soldier. He fought in the Middle East. He always said protecting the country was his duty, that he was ready to sacrifice everything." Her voice broke, and tears silently rolled down her gaunt cheeks. Trump sat quietly, listening intently. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes spoke volumes. "After he died, I tried my best to keep the family from falling apart," the woman continued. "But illness knocked me down. I lost my job, we lost our home, and now this is all we have left." She gestured around the small room where rotting wooden walls couldn't even block the wind, and furniture consisted of scavenged junk. Lily stood next to her mother, interjecting with a soft but determined voice. "I tried to help Mom. I collected plastic bottles, sold small items, but I couldn't do more than that." Lily's words made Trump close his eyes for a moment, as if suppressing emotion. When he opened them, his gaze burned with fierce determination. "You don't have to worry anymore," Trump said, turning to the woman. "I promise you that from now on, you and Lily won't have to live like this. We'll change everything, starting today." The woman looked at him in disbelief. "Really, Mr. Trump, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Trump replied firmly. "I'm not here for thanks. I'm here to act." Just then, one of Trump's advisors stepped in, his face full of worry. "Sir, we need to leave immediately. This area isn't safe. We can plan support from the office." Trump turned, his gaze icy. "I'm not leaving while this family still has to live in these conditions. If you're scared, you can go back." No one dared to say more. Trump stood up and walked to the door, but before leaving, he turned back to the woman. "Rest, everything will be resolved soon." When Trump stepped out of the shack, he noticed the crowd outside had grown larger. Curious, skeptical, and hopeful eyes all turned toward him. Trump stepped onto the rotting wooden doorstep, standing tall as he scanned the area. He understood that what he was about to say wasn't just for Lily and her mother, but for everyone living in similar circumstances. "Friends," he began, his voice booming and powerful. "Today, I met a girl named Lily. Her father died protecting this country, but instead of living in gratitude, her family was left behind, forgotten in poverty and despair." The crowd remained silent, but Trump felt their attention. "That's unacceptable," he continued, his voice full of emotion. "No family, especially the families of those who sacrificed for this country, should live like this. That will change starting today." His words rang like a strong promise. At first the crowd was skeptical, but then scattered claps began to sound. Those claps quickly spread, merging into a thunderous ovation. Trump turned to his advisory team. "I want a full report on all the families in this area. I want to know what they need, and I want action immediately. No delays, no excuses." "Sir, we need a long-term plan," one advisor started to say. "We'll have a long-term plan," Trump interrupted. "But first, we'll do what we can right now. This isn't the time to procrastinate." The crowd looked at Trump with a mix of surprise and hope. A middle-aged man nearby spoke up. You'll really help us, not just empty promises?" Trump turned to him, his gaze resolute. "This isn't a promise. It's a commitment, and you'll see it happen." Those words seemed to ignite a fire in everyone's hearts. Cheers erupted. For the first time in years, this small slum was filled with hope. Trump looked at Lily. She stood holding her mother's hand. In Lily's shining eyes, he saw not only gratitude, but also faith in a better future. And that was what drove him to act. That day, Trump didn't just make a statement. He sparked a monumental change. A change he knew wouldn't stop with Lily and her mother, but would spread to thousands of families across the country. Just a few hours later, the story of Lily and Trump's unexpected action went viral on social media, creating a powerful wave. A video capturing the moment Trump stepped out of the Cadillac and talked to the little girl on the sidewalk spread like wildfire, An article with a photo of Lily holding her mother's hand bore the caption, "A child who never gave up hope and a leader who decided to act. This is what the world needs." The viral effect sparked support from many individuals and major organizations. Companies like Amazon, Walmart, and Apple announced they would donate millions of dollars to support the Hope for Heroes initiative that Trump had just launched. Renowned charities like the Red Cross and United Way also pledged to collaborate to expand the program, providing aid to veteran families nationwide. Stories similar to Lily's began to surface. One user wrote, "My dad was also a veteran, and we once lived in a slum like Lily's. But now, thanks to everyone's compassion, I believe no one will have to endure this anymore." Lily's story didn't just inspire, it awakened a spirit of unity. Schools organized donation drives to help children of veterans. Many citizens volunteered for charity programs. Trump, despite being the center of attention, remained humble. In a television interview, he said, "This story isn't about me, it's about Lily and thousands of other families who need help. If my actions can light a spark of hope, that's only the first step. There's still a lot of work to be done." However, not everyone supported Trump's actions. Some claimed it was just a publicity stunt, a carefully staged political drama on media and social platforms. A small but vocal group began criticizing the initiative, arguing that Trump couldn't fulfill long-term commitments and was exploiting public emotions. Tensions escalated when an opposing group arrived at the area where Trump was implementing support. They distributed flyers, held gatherings, and stirred doubt within the community, eroding some people's trust in the Hope for Heroes initiative. "I heard they're just here to take photos and leave," an elderly man in the slum said skeptically. But Trump didn't shy away from the criticism. He organized a public meeting right in the area where the project was underway. During the meeting, he directly faced his critics. An elderly man stood up and asked bluntly, "How do we know you're not just putting on a show? We've heard promises like this before." Trump calmly responded, "I understand your skepticism, but this isn't about promises, it's about actions. If you haven't seen results yet, wait and see. I won't leave until families like Lily's have a better life. And if I fail, you'll be the first to know." His straightforwardness surprised many in the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, and scattered applause broke out. Beyond words, Trump continued to hold meetings in communities across the country. He listened to each family's and veteran's story, directly instructing his team to develop specific action plans. Gradually, even those who had criticized him couldn't deny the impact of the initiative. A journalist who had once criticized Trump admitted in an article, "Whether we agree with his style or not, we can't deny that this initiative is truly changing lives." When Trump returned to the slum where it all began, he noticed clear improvements. The makeshift houses had been replaced with sturdier homes. Children played with smiles on their faces, and the residents, though still struggling, no longer had hopeless eyes. It all started with a small sign and an unexpected action. But Trump knew this was only the beginning. Bigger challenges awaited, and he was ready to face them. The following month, Lily's story became a symbol that spread across America. Not only did it bring real change to impoverished communities, but it also touched the hearts of millions. To mark a significant milestone for the Hope for Heroes movement, Donald Trump decided to host a special event at the White House, where he officially launched the campaign nationwide. He personally invited Lily and her mother to attend, not just as guests, but as the main inspirational figures. When the car brought Lily and her mother to the White House, the girl sat quietly in her seat, her eyes wide as she gazed at the grand buildings and expansive grounds in awe. "Mom, I never thought I'd ever come here," Lily whispered, her hands clenched tightly together. Her mother smiled gently, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You deserve this, Lily. You've done more than anyone could imagine." Inside the White House auditorium, the atmosphere turned solemn as officials, charity representatives, veterans, and guests from all over gathered. Everyone eagerly awaited Lily and her mother's appearance. When they entered, the entire room stood and applauded. Lily felt a little nervous, but her radiant smile warmed the room. Trump stepped to the podium and began his speech. "Today, we're not just here to honor a story, we're here to start a movement," he said, his voice deep but powerful. The story of Lily and her mother is a reminder that no matter how tough the circumstances, courage and hope can change everything. But this change can't come from just one person or one family. It requires unity from all of us. Trump officially launched the Hope for Heroes campaign nationwide, calling for collaboration from the government, businesses, charities, and individuals. He announced initiatives to support veteran families, including housing, healthcare, education, and jobs. The event grew even more emotional when several veterans were invited to share their stories. A middle-aged man stood up, his eyes red, his voice choked. "I once thought my sacrifice meant nothing, that my family had been forgotten. But thanks to Lily's story, I know there are still people who care. I want to join this movement, not just to help my family, but to help others too." Those words seemed to ignite a fire in the room. Many other veterans volunteered for support programs, spreading a spirit of unity everywhere. 2 years later, at the National Park Center in Washington, D.C., a special monument was erected to honor veteran families. The statue depicted a soldier kneeling, holding his young daughter's hand, symbolizing sacrifice and the unbreakable bond between families and those who protect the nation. The monument's unveiling attracted thousands of attendees. Lily, now a teenager, stood on stage in a simple white dress. Before her was a silent crowd waiting patiently. She took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions before speaking. "I never thought my little sign could change anything," she said, her voice trembling but full of emotion. "All I wanted was to save my mom. But thanks to one person's compassion and help, not only did my mom's and my life change, but thousands of other families were helped too. I realized that sometimes a small action can spark big changes." Thunderous applause erupted, lasting like an unending wave. Some in the crowd wiped away tears, while others clapped relentlessly. Trump sat in the front row, looking at Lily with pride. When she finished her speech, he stepped onto the stage, shook her hand, and turned to the crowd. "Today we're not just honoring the sacrifices of veterans," he said, his voice resounding. "We're also honoring the power of unity and compassion. This monument isn't just a symbol of sacrifice, but a reminder that we have a responsibility to care for those who protected this country." The unveiling ended with hundreds of people lining up, placing white flowers at the base of the statue as the evening sun set. Lily stood beside her mother, looking up at the statue she knew would forever symbolize hope and kindness. The story of Lily and the Hope for Heroes campaign is powerful proof that facing adversity with courage, compassion, and unity can change lives, not just one person's, but an entire community's. A small but sincere action can light a spark of hope, spreading everywhere and creating monumental changes. This journey also reminds us that the sacrifices of those who protect our country are never forgotten, and it's our responsibility to ensure those families live with respect and love. Thank you for taking the time to follow this inspiring story. I hope it touched your heart and reignited your belief that anyone can make a difference. If you found this story meaningful, don't hesitate to hit like to spread a positive message, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to catch more inspiring stories. Share this video with friends, family, and loved ones, because it might just be the spark that changes their lives. Finally, leave a comment below. What did you learn from this story? Is there any action you want to take right now to help others? Let's spread the spirit of kindness and faith and goodness together. Thank you, and see you in the next stories.